Smart 24, driving business.
You're most welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for staying. Sebali. Now, we have talked a little bit about the integration in East Africa, and a lot has been said about what we can do to, of course, follow through those pillars: the customs union, the market union, as well as the monetary union, which the common market rather, and then the monetary union, which have been followed through to this day. But the African Continental Free Trade Area, according to World Bank, brings a lot of potential as well, with Uganda's export income expected to increase at least by 3.3%. Now, Uganda's exports and imports are expected to increase by 2035, with exports expected to grow by a cumulative average of $2.5 billion US, while the imports will increase at least by about $3.1 billion US, and that is between now 2022 and 2035. However, according to Ms. Sashana, according to what she said in a report recently, for Uganda to benefit from the continental market, there is need to lower the burden of administrative compliance and simplify customs procedure by implementing the African Continental Free Trade Area protocols on trade facilitation, World Trade Organization trade facilitation agreements, and also boost agricultural productivity, among other things. Other areas of concern of improvement, she said, could include as well strengthening standards and complete negotiation on a series of the African Continental Free Trade Area negotiations protocols, and establishment of clear, ambitious, and enforceable rules adopted, of course, necessary to enhance the domestic legislation and build enforcement capacity. Now, that's a lot, seems a lot for Uganda to take in, but I want to bring in the gentleman here on the issue of the African Continental Trade Area, especially what it has for Uganda. You see, the UN report here clearly says that we do have a lot of potential to exploit, but there are still some few bottlenecks here and there. How are we going to overcome these bottlenecks, especially speaking about the low agricultural productivity, the low outputs, and the lack of the compliance to the African Continental Free Trade Area protocols? Mr. Jack, you can start.
Thank you so much, Comrade Anthony, for that. The African Continental Free Trade Area is something that is so timely for Africa and us, of course, as young people. But I would want to focus on how best can we benefit from it, because it's more or less like our customs union and common market, or those two pillars. And we have already, of course, signed, and of course Uganda ratified, I think, the protocol. But one thing we need to look at is how will Uganda benefit from this bigger market? Is this bigger market for Africa, or it is a market for other strong powers who benefit from it? Because one, we still have an issue of what are we selling to Africa, and where we have maybe a comparative advantage for Uganda, for us, I think, is one, I'll focus on tourism. When you look at
interesting.
Yeah, the African Union, almost the 8 regional economic blocs, the one for East African Community, and the Central Economic States for Africa, and now the northern part. You look at how people are benefiting from our River Nile, for example, here, and how the agreements we made that you find Egypt even has more powers on our water here than us. You've seen the challenges when Ethiopia was trying to build that great Renaissance Dam, the challenges that people got. So most people come here to see the source of the Nile. That is one. 2, Uganda has, it's a part of Africa, so we have better, we have good national parks, we have very many animals that are not anywhere in Africa, maybe like the wind impenetrable forest. So if Uganda, first of all, is to benefit, we need to look at our comparative advantage. First of all, that is one. 2, we're talking about unpacking the lies behind the continental free trade area, because the issue of visa fees in Africa is still a challenge when you look at young people, because how will someone trade with a person in South Africa when you cannot get a visa to go to South Africa? Personally, I applied for a visa to South Africa. There's a time we had a conference there, and I was rejected. Moreover, an East African Community official, when they took like 2 months, then then they replied to me when the event even had ended.
And they give you the visa.
Now you look at someone who wants to go to Morocco. It is very hard for someone to come from Uganda to go and be in Morocco, because Morocco is good at the cultural things, and we are trying to ensure that maybe our arts, crafts, and all the things that we make here, you see on is it Buganda Road, someone can go and trade with those people, but the challenge is still on how do you access, because in my own view, I believe that there are some things we need to first look at as Africans. One, is this market ours? If it's ours, what do we have to sell? Because we need to first focus on our industrialization agenda, on the technological advancement, on the issues of harmonization of laws when it comes to tax regimes, the issues of infrastructure. We are still grappling with. You were talking about air transport. If you're to go from here to Ghana, it's very expensive. Even in cargo. Or you were talking about Kenya. Kenya is lucky that it's the only EAC country that has a direct flight, I think, to USA. In New York, yes. I think 4 times or 3 times in a week. They also fly direct to London. I saw Uganda was also trying to get, I don't know how far we got. So you look at the infrastructure, how are these goods going to move in Africa, for example? There was a proposal, they wanted to have the longest railway line from the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia, up to the coast, the other side of West Africa. But that one is still in the pipeline. Ourselves here, we have failed to finalize the standard gauge railway. We still, much as we have made strides on infrastructure development, but I'm looking at how best are we going to compete favorably in the African continental free trade area. In my own thinking, if we are not serious, this area is going to be taken up by Chinese and Americans and the Europeans. So we need, first of all, African governments should stop living a lie. Let Africa be borderless. Straight. We need to start from that. If I'm going to Ghana, I don't need a visa. If I'm going to Egypt, I don't need a visa. If I'm going to South Africa, I don't need a visa. Visa issues are a challenge. And these African countries are lying that we are promoting this. I will give an example. We signed the African Union Youth Charter, but people have failed even to ratify. Some countries have failed to do that. So I believe if we are to achieve this, we are going to start with the economic blocs. West African, the ECOWAS, the SADC, EAC, then we sit on the table and we see how best we can accelerate integration between the economic blocs. Because when you look at trade between Uganda and Kenya, it's booming. When you look at trade between Tanzania and Malawi, or Zambia and Zimbabwe, or Zimbabwe and South Africa, it's booming. So now what we're going to do, we shouldn't look at it, okay, we should not, in my own opinion, shouldn't run very fast on a bandwagon of taking it up the whole. We need to first integrate the RECs, Regional Economic Committees. That if Uganda is EAC, how is the trade between EAC and SADC, for example? What are the barriers in there? Because the protocols for AfCFTA are very good. Ratifying them has no problem, but implementation is the biggest challenge. And as youth and as the economists out there and the media, we need to sit and look at the easiest way. First of all, when you look at these protocols, of course they are cumbersome in a law language. People who did law can only are the ones to understand them. They are not easy for a common man, a young person from Burundi who is trying to sell his tomatoes in DRC to understand. So that is also one way that we need also to break it down to favor the